All right, friends, family, we're so stoked to have you with us. We've got a healthy amount of participants and listeners. So thank you again for spending your time. Y'all should, I hope I know you all, but my name is Amanda. I'm the president of COMMB, and we have a very exciting topic today. We are going to be talking about unlocking the power of place-based advertising. I think this is an incredible time to be speaking about us being back in the place-based environment, cinemas, resto bars, all sorts of arenas. I'm just really, really excited. I went to a concert the other day at this massive arena, and just really, really excited. I think it's going to be a great discussion. So we're going to be talking and connecting with brands specifically about how they leverage place-based advertising to connect with the right audience and to really communicate and use each particular network in its unique facet. So every place-based network has its nuances, and I think this is it's going to be a really compelling conversation. So I'm quite excited. And without further ado, I'll introduce my co-moderator. Stoked to have you back, Jason. The editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine. Say a few words, say hello, welcome our guests.
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. I will admit, not the foremost expert on place-based advertising, but I love entrepreneurs. I love advertising. I love helping people connect to the right products and solutions for them. So I'm excited to be here and be a part of this conversation and drive some good questions, which will lead to some answers for everybody. And editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine. I wrote this book back here called Build for Tomorrow, which is about navigating change, which is something that we all have to do, which is a good reason to have this conversation.
If anybody wants a copy of that book, COMMB does have a few extra copies that we can send your way. So just ping me afterwards if you want a copy of that book.
Yeah, appreciate that. Oh, and Mo shouted out the newsletter. Yes, I'll drop a link to my newsletter in the chat. But anyway, it's not about me. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And we've got a great group of panelists with us today. So first, Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sarah Kim. I'm the SVP at Talon out of Home Canada. For those of you who don't know, Talon is the new Novus. So we were acquired by Talon, a global independent out-of-home agency, in March of this year, and we're really looking forward to relaunching the brand in the marketplace.
Very exciting, and congrats on the acquisition. I think that's very good, very exciting. Good group at Talon. Tariq, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. For those of you who do not know me, Tariq Qasim. I am a part of the dentsu out-of-home and print team. Really excited about this conversation because it's about time we had this. So super excited and looking forward to this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Adam.
Yeah, hi, my name is Adam Gaudet. For those you don't know, I work for UB Media. I'm the Director of Marketing and Client Relations. UB is the largest independently owned and run place-based advertising vendor in Canada. We do national networks for cinema, campus, resto bar, and as well as residential place-based.
I love it. We've got two agency experts and a media owner expert. So let's dive in. Are you ready? Okay, so Tariq, I'm gonna float the first question by you, if that's okay. I'll put you in the hot seat first. You ready?
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
So, how do you integrate place-based advertising into a comprehensive media plan, your MMM, and what other channels are you typically sort of combining place-based with?
So, I think the first thing in this question would be how easy it is to integrate place-based, and it is very underrated. That I personally believe, because every sort of audience, no matter what it is, at some point in some way is exposed to place-based. Whether you live in a condominium, you go to watch a movie, you use the transit, like some way, one way or the other, the audiences are exposed to place-based, which makes it easier, followed by the virtues of place-based itself. Like high dwell time, high attention, like very contained kind of an environment. And of course, we sell environments. Out of home is all about environments. So that, and then followed by the fundamentals of almost, I think, every single brief. Who are we looking after? Like what are our audiences, objectives, all that stuff. So I think that coupled with the broader campaign, what other media tactics are being used before we even reach to the stage where we're looking into out-of-home, play-space, or outdoor. So it all depends on all that stuff. But at the same time, I would also say we typically would use mobile retargeting in most scenarios. We would use audio in certain scenarios, and digital is always there. So depending on what's the nature of the campaign, these work very well altogether. That's what we've experienced so far.
Very interesting. Before, Jason, I know you have a compelling question, but before you jump into that, you and I were jamming right before this call, and we were talking about the resurgence of office, the return to the office space, and I think it's very there's a number of very compelling statistics and research that's out there talking about that, but I'll let you jump into your question, then we'll get to that subject in a little bit.
Kicking it to me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Great. Yes. Well, so Tariq, that was a great point about how everyone's exposed to place-based marketing. So let's build that out a little bit more and turn to Sarah here. Sarah, so how do you utilize place-based advertising in your media buying strategies? We know it's important. We know everyone's exposed to it. So how do we start to strategize?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, place-based has really quickly become essential for providing reach in non-VECTOM markets. So digital out of home hasn't made its way all the way up to every remote corner within Canada, but place-based offers that opportunity. It's also the perfect bridge between online video and out of home, as it really marries the two to create unique and more affordable opportunities for audience extension campaigns. So depending on the objective that the client has, the focus for us in place-based could be contextual messaging. But at other times, it's a nice way to show frequency within a specific audience on a general reach plan. So in either case, it can be really helpful for us to drive lower funnel metrics, as place-based is a natural fit for things like QR codes and call to action that aren't necessarily going to perform as well on large format static.
And how do you measure the ROI of place-based advertising and then communicate that value to your clients?
Yeah, so we have a couple of options when it comes to the measurement portion. We can work directly with media owners to understand what measurement they have available to them within the timeframe that our campaigns are running. But ROI can be tricky and out of home if you're only looking at a single placement type. When we're looking at clients' objectives, we have to use that to dictate which partners we're going to go to really understand what type of measurement we can offer and what's required. The trouble really is going to be scale. So a lot of times, if we don't have enough scale in market, anything that we come back to with measurement is going to be really seen as directional and not necessarily causational. So it can be a bit tricky for us in place-based if budgets are a little bit smaller, but really helping clients to understand the value of place-based and many different format types within a media plan and how that performs all together is really the key.
Very cool. I love that answer. Very, very insightful. Adam, I want to throw to you. Could you potentially share some insights on the future outlook of place-based advertising? You mentioned in your intro, you represent a number of different place-based networks. So what are you seeing in the marketplace right now?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. So I can only really obviously answer the place-based sectors that we operate within UB, so cinema, resto, campus, and residential. But definitely emerging opportunities, they lay, as Sarah even touched on, they lay within the digital and the convergence atmosphere. Okay, so our networks are very digitally focused, as anyone that's in the same boat will say, this is the forefront. I mean, as an industry, we've been saying this for years now, and I think we're finally at that point where we're starting to see the fruits of this initiative. We've been investing in digital screens for 5 years to the point where we're almost completely digital at this point. And the opportunity is to definitely overlay data in environments with a lot of contextual dwell time. Combine that with the flexibility that digital inventory provides, and I think that's really where the big opportunities are. Now, if we're going to say challenges or kind of, footholds that we might get stuck in, I wouldn't say that per se, but maybe where the industry needs to do a bit better of a job is taking more time to plan creative around these digital specific campaigns. So we all know that technology brings data and efficiency, but the beauty about place-based is having the ability to target a specific consumer in a captive environmental setting, and then the creative has to play a huge role in maximizing the impact of that one-on-one interaction as well.
Creative is
Yeah.
key, and we've had a lot of conversations, you know, in the industry about DCO with programmatic and how we can leverage dynamic creative optimization in the industry. I spoke at a conference in India recently, and it was one of the big topics there. There was a company that works specifically within that space and heavily in the place-based area on the creative sector. But I think creative is so important when it comes to out of home, generally speaking, particularly place-based. Adam, to your point, you've got a captive audience. You're within an environment where you can easily have a consumer behave in a certain capacity that the brand is looking to do. You can have them purchase, you know, if you're in a grocery store, you can have them purchase if you're in a resto bar or a cinema, et cetera. So I really think it's a great point. Creative is key.
Tariq, I'd love to bring you in on this to how you build upon it. I mean, that was a lot of great insight from Adam and Amanda about the opportunity here and the way to really capitalize on it. But what other specific benefits do you see, bringing in your area of expertise, in incorporating place-based advertising into your media plans?
So I think this question would have two-legged answer. One would be very obvious, the best of, as I said, the virtues of this particular environment itself, the place-based. But the second leg is what I would like to focus on as media planners and buyers. It would be because we're moving more and more towards digital, and that adds up to the agility factor and how soon we can get into it, which sometimes is, especially after COVID, that has become a point of, not a pain point, but a point of opportunity. And we've been seeing that more and more. It reflects in the bias too. So the agility it offers, the coverage it offers, then I think the quality of the impressions, because of the very nature and the very basics of place-based, again, to the point where the audience is very captive, the quality of impressions is, I would say, wouldn't say better, but like it's more of what would be required depending on the specific brief. Another thing would be the potential of the audiences to be more interactive, which opens up a whole box of opportunities of what you can do within that space. And this leads on to
creative
side. Exactly. And then this also leads into the next what do you call benefit for place-based. It's that it's very flexible. It's only been rare occasions and completely, I would say, impractical ideas where we've not been able to execute something that has been ideated and it was a good idea. Otherwise, place-based is much more flexible because it's space, and we can pretty much choose how to use it based on what we want to do. And creative, again, to your point, plays a very vital role in it. So lots as benefits for place-based, but again, every situation is different. So it becomes a part of our job to marry the two and make sure we are able to kind of optimize everything.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Tariq. Yeah. And Sarah, probably, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm certain you may echo that sentiment where, there's so much flexibility when it comes to place-based because it's versatility as well. There's so many different network types. And Adam, perhaps maybe you can speak to this. Tariq mentioned the let's call it evolutionary shift between consumer behaviors post-pandemic. Have you seen a lot of changes? What is your view? What is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, there have been. It'd be kind of insane to say that there wasn't, to tell you the truth. There was an obvious adjustment and recover period. I mean, we all saw that. Place-based got hit by some of the hardest sectors of our industry, but as I said, it was an adjustment and recover period. It was getting consumers' confidence back. But if you fast forward to where we are today on August 16th, coming out of the rubble, we haven't really seen any really serious detrimental long-lasting effects. I mean, residential actually saw a spike with the work from home mandates. Advertisers are pretty quick to pick up on that. It was actually one of our best performing. And as many of you know, UB acquired Max TV as a pivot within the pandemic in order to maximize on that kind of shift. With the exception of back to school 2020, campuses are fully back. Students are back on campus. We've seen a massive spike this year in BTS spending, especially with the launch of our student housing network. Resto bars, resto bars and cinema, they got hit, I would say, more than most industries did. But if anybody's tried to make a resto lately, or if you go outside today, I took a walk at lunch, the patios are packed. People are back out, they're revenge spending. They are out, they're eating, they're enjoying the best life again. Cinema, a little bit longer. Yeah, I think because of the nature of it being a truly indoor, place-based environment. But if anybody's been looking at the news recently, cinema numbers are currently above year-to-date 2019. We passed that tipping point, so we're now starting to see a growth in this sector. I mean, a lot of it, everyone knows what Barbenheimer is, but a lot of it has been, we're seeing historical box office revenue these days. So long-lasting effects, maybe permanent lasting effects. I haven't seen them yet.
I think also just on that topic, the office space, a lot of statistics on return to office, particularly, in urban cores. I think the most recent stat that I had read was about 75% have returned to office at least 3, if not 5 days a week. And it varies depending on the sector. But the statistics that I've read were that about 8 to 10 people or professionals who are accustomed to attending office, if you will, did visit their office within the last 30 days. And there was some additional interesting insights relative to return to work and return to normal office behaviors, that Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday were the highest peak days for office attendance. And I'm not sure how that resonates with our viewers. But certainly I know that my team was in the office yesterday. We spent the full day in the office. I've got a group in the office today. So certainly those statistics do seem to resonate well. Jason, you had a really good follow-up question.
Yeah, it was, first of all, by the way, as a guy who has a 4 and an 8-year-old at home, I don't get to the theater that often. So I was not aware, Adam, of those statistics of how well cinema is doing. That's really cool. Yeah, I wanted to move a little more towards the creative focus discussion, because that had been teed up by Adam and Tariq. And Tariq, I'd love to know from you, how do you customize and tailor place-based advertising messages to resonate with specific target audiences?
That's a very good question. I would take a step back in the whole planning phase before, and I ask a lot of questions. Which we have started doing that. We have since a while now. We would go back to, who are we talking to? Why are we talking to those people? And again, to Amanda's point, there's so many environments. Where specifically do we want to talk them to? And what is it that we expect out of them? And how would be your creative in terms of how are we communicating with them? I think tools and data play a big part in this understanding. And of course, it's a synergy of multiple lines and streams all together. Your creatives working together with you. You have your objectives in your mind. You have what you know is available in the market that you can do, and then you justify it with your data and the audiences. So there goes a lot into it, but I think there's one vital, if I were to sum it up in one point, it would be, what do we require out of an ask? It's going to be that one big what question that everything streams out of. So as long as we have that covered, I think based on everything that we have, all the resources we have, we are in today's world happy to say that, able to pinpoint and hit a bullseye, close to a bullseye.
Okay, so I'm just going to feed off of that. While you're trying to hit a bullseye or close to a bullseye, and I'm going to throw this to Sarah, what trends or innovations are you seeing? How are you leveraging these trends and innovations specifically in place-based to hit that bullseye?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked a lot about the creative being really important, and not just from a quality perspective, but also really understanding that the context for out of home is its location, right? So when, not just when we're thinking about proximity to store and being right outside of the store, and that's, hitting that creative and getting that on point to drive foot traffic is really important for that particular brand. But from an audience perspective in general, if you want to reach parents, go to the places parents are. If you want to reach people who drive and are in their cars, go to the places where people are driving and they're in their cars. So there's lots of opportunities to make sure that we're capitalizing on the actual venue type and format type that we're on. And in place-based, we have endless opportunities to do that. So in a lot of cases, I throw it back to what I like to call free targeting, where we don't put an audience layer on active individuals within a gym, because by nature, if you're in a gym seeing advertisements, you're very likely an active individual. So we're already doing the targeting by selecting the right venue type. And I want to see more of that. I think that's really important for place-based. I think that's an important message that they have, and good competitive advantage that they have over some of our other, opportunities in out of home. But I'm really just excited to see the growth in the industry. I think I see more screens online every day when I'm in the platform, and working with our media partners to educate our brands and marketers about the opportunities that do exist in place-based and how we can connect some of their reach and awareness goals into middle and lower funnel opportunities for them as well. And so, we can think of out of home from the context of, yes, reach and awareness. Most of our plans are still coming in asking for that, but how can we work with our teams to dig a little bit deeper and uncover new opportunities that place-based is bringing to the table to drive different KPIs?
I love that. And my follow-up question to that was, can you give some examples? But you did give a few examples. But if you have a case study or an example that you want to, highlight, I would welcome that. And Tariq, you as well on the planning side.
Sure. Yeah. So more specifically, an example I can think of for place-based is just really understanding the context and using some of the technology available to us for day parting. So we have a QSR brand, doesn't have quite the budget of some of the majors, and is not able to put a couple of boards outside of each one of their stores, but does want to ensure that they're still driving sales for new products. So we talked to them about place-based opportunities to reach families within, the 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. window. So that, mom or dad is sitting there watching hockey practice and they're seeing advertisements and saying, yeah, that's probably a pretty good solution to this dinner issue that we've got coming up, right?
Jason, with young kids, with young kids, Jason, you probably relate to that.
I do, except for the part I just laughed to myself when Sarah said hockey practice, because it reminded me that we're having a Canadian conversation right now. In New York, there's a little less of hockey practice, but yes, absolutely relate.
Absolutely.
I love that. Tariq, do you have an example that you want to share?
Well, there's many, which I love about place-based. We were exploring an idea not too long ago, but it had something to do with interactivity. Interactive kind of placements where people are actually, and it has been done in the past, which really excites me and it was done a few years ago until COVID kind of put a halt to everything. It's the evolution now with AI as well as place-based interactive media. So really excited. It's not something that has been done already, but really looking forward to it. Hopefully.
I like that.
Adam, we've talked. What's that? Oh.
Sorry.
Adam, we've talked about place-based in something of a vacuum almost, right? In that we're talking about it as a very specific entity, but we haven't exactly compared it to other channels. And I'm curious for you to just bring some perspective in for that. As an advertiser, what unique benefits does place-based advertising in indoor venues and malls and cinemas offer compared to other advertising channels?
Yeah, getting back to context, which has been, a keyword, and it is a keyword when it comes to place-based advertising. I think speaking to consumers in a captive environment with a high dwell time, it's extremely impactful. Whether it's a car spot in a cinema where, a beautifully shot cinematic ad, you can see it and you can hear the cars rumble. You can actually feel the engine in the seat sometimes just because of those amazing sound systems. Or if you think about sitting at a restaurant, right? And you see the Resto Bar screens and it puts up an ad for a beer, let's say a Guinness or a Caesar. It's kind of like for us in Canada anyways, the equivalent of passing by somebody's table and you're seeing a good meal. You're seeing, I could go for a Caesar right now, so you go and you order it. It's that last purchase intent funnel. And I think that's one of the huge impacts and one of the huge benefits. And then there's a tendency for out of home, on the broad scale, to get looped up into this mass awareness campaigns, but it can be much more intimate in these place-based environments. These avenues allow brands to actually speak one-on-one to consumers. Aside from that, there's also great opportunity. I think Sarah mentioned on it before with the convergence through QR codes and attribution, which ultimately lead to brand lifts and sales, because it's really hard to do that if you're driving by in the Gardner and you see a QR code or you see a link on one of those massive billboards. But if you're in this environment where you're looking at the screen, it's right in front of you, you have a couple extra seconds. That's a direct action right there.
I think that's actually a really, really great point to kind of dive into a bit, because the contextual relevancy of out of home, just generally speaking, whether it's roadside or whether it's indoor place-based, it has such an impact. Consumers are moving about their day, and I often say that out of home is part of the fabric of our lives, because it's there. It's a part of our day-to-day. It's every day when I take my dogs for a walk, I pass hand paint murals, I pass transit shelters, I pass big, beautiful, outdoor, but I also every day on my day-to-day, I go into a restaurant, or I go into the grocery store, I go into a cinema. It's all part of the fabric. What's really interesting from a place-based perspective is that you do, Adam, to your point, have that one-on-one, more one-to-one connection versus a one-to-many that more of the outdoor side of out of home has. So Tariq, I kind of want to pick your brain on how, like, with this context, how do you choose the right place-based format when you're building a plan? How is this? Because there's so much to think about, and educate me, because I don't come from your world. I'm very curious to learn.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of things that come into play when you're selecting these places, of course. And it is data really helps us in this regard. Along with that comes certain preferences. Fortunately or unfortunately, certain avenues need to be still educated, and until then, they have a certain set of preferences which we are now able to overcome by, if they're creating a bottleneck, we are able to overcome by the data and back it up with it and be like, okay, this is more effective. This is going to be more effective. So when it comes to that place, some clients are very focused on the geography. Some want to chase the audience. Some just like to go with the creative and think where the creative would be more apt, and then layer on the audience and be like, okay, out of that, let's filter out. So that is a mixture of a lot of things. Pretty much depends on what we're looking for. And also, I think in Canada,
Question, like, what type of data? What when you say data, like
audience data, traffic data, yes, like the profiles and everything. And also one more thing that is a key factor, that becomes a key factor in certain times within Canada, is the weather. And that also is all to be considered, and we do incorporate that. Let's say if you're planning for a holiday campaign, doesn't matter if you're planning in June or in May, we do incorporate the factor that the weather is going to be such, and people's behavior might change based on the weather. So these kind of things just add it.
Patio in December in Canada?
I would love to, if only it was not the actual winter. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
That makes sense.
Well, in that last exchange, the magic word data was used 3 times. I was counting. Sarah, let's make you say the word data even more. I'm curious for you to pick up on that. What role does data and analytics play in your decision-making process when it comes to place-based advertising?
Yeah, so I mean, data. Are we at like 10 yet?
You've matched them already in the first 3 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's incredibly important when you're spending someone else's money. And like every day as planners, that's what we're doing essentially, is we're helping clients to connect their brand to their audience. And we need to have good verified reasons as to why we've put those boards or those venues on the plan. So for us, data is really table stakes. As an industry, I think we're all pretty aligned with the idea that we need to understand who an audience is within a certain venue, what their visit dwell time looks like when they visit, and any other behavioral or demo information that is like appropriate and lawful for them to collect. So really having good, strong relationships with media owners, understanding their venue types, how they differ by market, what types of opportunities are available within those spaces, and how we can leverage that from a creative standpoint is really important. But at Talon, we do a lot of work with custom audiences because audience data is really important to us. So we use first party where possible and third party data to really form the ideal scenario for a brand to be able to see where their audience is going, see where they've been, and make sure they're capitalizing on those opportunities to build the appropriate reach and frequency.
Another thing data can do really well is, of course, help you see trends, broader trends, which is my pivot point to Adam to talk about trends a little bit. Adam, how has the landscape of place-based advertising in indoor venues, malls, cinemas evolved in recent years, and what notable trends and changes are you seeing?
So, I mean, the obvious one right off the bat is digital. It's way more accessible today than it was 3 years ago, not even 5-10 years ago. And with this, many opportunities have emerged. I mean, programmatic-led buying and strategies, for one, which has kind of revolutionized the way that we've done planning. We've looked at the way that advertising can be done, with Sarah and Tariq mentioned as well, with the layering of audience segments. I mean, where does that come from? Data. We've said it a ton. There's a ton of data out there with mobile IDs, with retargeting tech. We have a wealth of knowledge as to who is in our environment better than ever before. 5 years ago, it was all about quantifying how many eyeballs or impressions were in location. Whereas now the focus is who is in our locations. How can we speak to them directly? How can we know these different audience segments, their daily foot traffic, and how can we make sure that the brands fall into something that is interesting to them along that path? There's something out of Europe, it's a little new, but it's called attentive CPM, which combines attention and CPM, helping advertisers to attach a value to the amount of engagement an advertising campaign can actually achieve, basically aiming to quantify attention. So as like some of these new segments or measurables catches on, we might be able to see attention to an ad as a KPI. I mean, there's always going to be evolving ways of measurement that come about with the new technology for greater advertising accountability. It's one of the great things about our fast-moving industry.
I love that so much, Adam. You know that I'm a technology advocate, so anything innovation, you're speaking to my soul here, my friend. There's actually a number of international associations and countries that are exploring an impact score, and Australia at the OMA have done a great job of applying an impact score, which does take into consideration size and scale, as well as attention. So certainly something that is coming, I think, for the industry as a whole, but it's new, and it's something that needs to be explored. The impact of that, the effects of it need to be explored. But Sarah, perhaps I can pose a question to you. Is there a specific technology or a platform you deal with, MMM planning throughout your day to day? So is there a technology or a preferred platform that you're working with? Does it impact your decision making? How does it impact your decision making? If so, what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a partnership standpoint, we do prefer to use programmatic DSP, SSP relationships to transact our place-based. There's a couple key reasons for that. So one, knowing that we have access to high quality inventory. We have access to verified measurement in some of these spaces as well, and the ability to really ingest data and ensure that reporting remains consistent throughout the campaign is really important for us in terms of how we're innovating and how we're working and talking to clients about the entirety of their campaign. So not just the static portion and the digital portion separate, but really a hybrid campaign bringing the two together. So we do choose to transact most of our place-based programmatically. And again, it's really focused on who's innovating in the space, what opportunities and tools are they providing, and how are we able to provide a more holistic view of the campaign and the results to clients via these partners.
Very, very interesting. So just gonna riff off that a little bit. How, and this is a question for everyone on the panel, how do you ensure brand safety with place-based? And is that a concern? Is it, I'm assuming it is a concern given the agency partners, but certainly, the fact that you represent, and Sarah, to your point previously, you're spending somebody else's money, you want to ensure that you put this brand safety. So how does that play into your decision-making, your ethos? What talk to us about the sentiment of brand safety and place-based?
Yeah, is it okay if I start?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Great.
Thank you.
So for us, when it comes to brand safety, it really comes down to having experts on the team that know what inventory our media owners are providing, what's being made available to them on the platform. We choose to transact a lot with PMPs. That provides a certain level of comfort for our entire team to understand that, you know, when I'm activating one of my UB PMPs, I'm getting these specific cinemas or these restaurants that we're familiar with, and that we can, you know, understand what types of audiences would be in those spaces. And then
Can I
communicating.
just pause for 1 second? So like in just an example, contextual example. So 19 plus content, you have the ability to cater that with your PMPs.
Yes, absolutely. So we would just work with our media owners to understand, you know, which PMPs are targeted to which types of audiences. So especially 19 plus, if we're looking for, you know, gambling or cannabis, or even sometimes, you know, alcohol and things like that have some restrictions, we will have separate PMPs available to the team for that, so that it's almost like almost impossible for them to book something in the wrong space because everything has already been prearranged.
Very good. Does anyone else on the panel would you like to comment?
Yeah, I can chime in. I think with although there is concern, of course, but out of home generally is brand safe in itself. Like the way we buy, and these platforms really help us as well to make sure that there's nothing that does not comply with the brand safety. And on top of that, I think it's also, you have to understand your client, your brand, the brands they represent, the persona they want to carry, the perception they want out in every bit of communication. So, and that goes at the time when you're onboarding a client, and that lives and breathes, and you learn as you go. So I think that comes into picture as well. And then again, to the point where out of home generally is pretty good.
Generally very brand safe.
Yes.
Media owner perspective, Adam?
Yeah, definitely. So just, you know, kind of riffing off of both of those, just making sure on our end that we're fully transparent with our boards and our networks to our advertisers, making sure the organizational. So, you know, when Sarah mentioned gambling and cannabis, making sure we don't have ads that leak anywhere outside of AOL venues, making sure that within our cinemas, our non-advertising towards kids end up in more PG or R-rated movies, or vice versa. We don't have any violence going in front of it. I mean, it's really an approval process. We have an operations team that handles that. They do a great job, and we know how important it is to our brand partners. And I mean, it's extremely important to just the way that society goes as well. So, I mean, yeah, let's make sure that everyone sees the ads that they're supposed to see.
And I think that plays into the concept and the discussion that we had a bit earlier in our panel here about contextual relevancy. So understanding, to your point, Adam, to your point, Tariq and Sarah, understanding the networks that you're working with and really sort of working cohesively, collaboratively together. PlaySpace has, you know, various different network types. So the audiences are vast, and that goes, you know, both in PlaySpace as well as in outdoor. But I think because PlaySpace is a little more one to less, if you will, versus one to many in the outdoor side, you have the ability to really cater and target your message and your communication more strategically and more impactfully. So I love that. I think that this has been a great discussion. We are right on time. So we wanted to leave a few minutes at the end of our panel for any Q&A. So there's a few questions that have popped up into the channel here. So I'll ask the first one. I'm not going to call out who asked these questions, but thank you for submitting. So first question, and this is for the panel. So whomever wishes to jump in first. How do you incorporate first-party data into your place-based executions and activations?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think I might have been the first one to mention first-party data. So with our long history at Novus, now Talon, of working with clients very closely with an analytics team staff to help ensure that we're optimizing those opportunities when we do know something about our existing clients. We have an analytics team that will go through and they'll look and they'll scrub and clean all the data, and they'll match it into other segments as well with third party to create a more round segment or lookalike audiences. So we can understand people who've signed up for something currently, where their home origin postal codes are, what their movement patterns may look like, and then bring that into the digital out of home world to help us scale boards so we can understand how valuable each specific board or venue type would be to us. So when it comes to place-based, that would just be more specific to the venue types that we see pop up, that we see indexing quite high against the first-party audiences.
Amazing, amazing. There's a creative question that I'm gonna throw Jason, because he's a bit of a creative. You know,
I like creative things.
Oh, come on, you're
Yeah.
creative.
I do. I do. The word creative perks me up. So here's one that came in with regard to creative. Whoever asked this, also all caps creative. I just want you all to know. Help me understand if you have creative before you are planning/buying, or if you are looking for suppliers to be providing contextual creative ideation.
Ooh, that's a good question.
I'll take that one, I guess. So it's, if we have it in the beginning, best, but that ideally never and essentially never happens. So what we can work with is just the basic ideation in terms of what's the big idea for the creative. And naturally, where we do appreciate and we do rely on our partners to let us know and inform us if there are any opportunities based on whatever bit of information we have at the time of the RFP or of the brief. We do our own ideation as well, and we bring in everything together. And that also accounts for to the first question, that what other channels do we have and how we can make it more holistic and more impactful.
Okay, so there's another creative question that is posed to both Tariq and Sarah. And first and foremost, thank you to the submitter. Kudos to the panel. You're getting some accolades. It's a great panel, well helmed, very well done, very well spoken. So for both Sarah and Tariq, the topic of customized creative specifically for place-based has come up. And so the question that is in the Q&A specifically says, are you able to have the same granular conversations with the creative agencies that serve your brands versus just, the media owners having to take the brunt of that?
Sarah, you want to go first? You can go first.
Yeah, sure. So that is a really good question. It's kind of a mixed bag of an answer, unfortunately. So not every single one of our clients is involving us in the creative process. Oftentimes they come to us once they've decided out of home is a potential channel, and they want to see what their opportunities look like. At that point, then we have the opportunity to suggest specific creative concepts or things that might work within the places that their audiences are. So it's, in some cases, it can be a little bit before, a little bit after, and in others working in conjunction with each other. It really just depends on the timing that the brand needs to be in market. But we are very open to having those creative conversations with many of our larger clients. We're involved in the creative process conversation. So I had an example just yesterday where a client had a quick question about something, and we were able to help them quickly spin and turn that into something else so that out of home is being realized and the opportunity there is not going to be missed. But now with Grand Visual as part of the Talon tools, we expect to be having a lot more creative conversations in market now that we have our own creative agency specific to out of home, accessible.
I will echo that. And on top of that, I would also love to say, I love this question, by the way, because it touches a very, very important point. We did start at dentsu. We started off these conversations last year where we initiated a whole education sessions for the clients, the brand teams, to help them understand what we're buying on their behalf, how we're doing it, and what sort of impact it can bring. So based on that, creative has always been at the forefront, because if it's not contextual, no matter how much money you're spending, you're not making that money work to its full potential. Based on that, of course, some of the clients came in on board, and we saw some really great results. We're working with a lot of creative agencies all together now. They know, and part of the education also goes towards these creative agencies. Some have responded quickly. Some I'm very hopeful will respond sooner as well. But this is a trend we're already working on, and we're seeing some great results. And that is, I think, doing justice to this industry, because out of home is a magnificent medium, and it deserves that.
Guys, you know what I love about Q&As is the way in which we just get to jump around subjects and answer what people are interested in. So we're going to go from creative to I'm now going to lurch us towards dollars and cents. So here's the question that just came in, which is, how does place-based pricing compare to other out-of-home mediums? Adam, you want to take that?
Sure. I mean, it is a little bit more. We've talked about it before. Instead of being, one on many, one on one. So there is a little bit of a higher of CPM. Now, I'm not on the media buying side, so I don't really know all of my competitors' rates, or even that of the billboards, or more of the mass awareness avenue out-of-home vendors. But we do know that it's a little bit higher of a CPM. But as we've been saying before, it's because it's more of a contextual. It's based on impactfulness. It's based on a captive environment, a more one-on-one talk, and a more of a quality impression than most mass awareness out-of-home vehicles, for sure.
Great answer. Sarah, Tariq, do you want to add anything to that on pricing? There's a bunch more questions. There's about 3-4 more questions that we can get through on this during our time here. But if you want to comment on the pricing before we move on to the next question, jump in.
I'll quickly echo what, sorry, so go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was just going to say my sassy answer would be like, well, it depends who's negotiating. Yes, we do see that place rates can sometimes come in a little higher CPM, but Adam made tons of good points. One thing I wanted to just add in there is video capability. We don't see a lot of full motion in traditional outdoor, even if it's digital outdoor, because of the nature of it. So having that video capability is more impactful for clients, and therefore the CPM is appropriate.
Yeah, and I would echo what Adam said as well, and Sarah too. But again, to the point where as long as we're getting the impact, we're getting the bullseye, as I would say, it doesn't necessarily matter. Yes, it does matter, of course. We have due diligence towards our clients as well. But as I mentioned, flexibility before, that also goes in the way our partners, our loving partners, deal with us. We have never faced a situation where they've not accommodated us. So while some formats tend to be a little on the higher side, but then again, the quality of what they deliver pretty much justifies it.
Amazing. And just to touch on what Sarah had sort of alluded to, the rationale and the reason why there's not a lot of video formats in outdoor advertising, for those who are with us and questioning, why wouldn't we have video in outdoor advertising? That's city regulatory bylaw restrictions. So a lot of our media owners would love to be able to offer video formats. However, they're restricted from doing so based on city and municipal bylaws. So it's not something that the media owners don't want or are not capable of. They're fully capable of doing so. There are just some legislative restrictions that prohibit the media owners from doing that. Okay,
Yeah,
couple more questions. Sorry, go ahead, Adam, please.
I was just going to add to that, and you're absolutely right. And then another, it's been mentioned a couple of times already today. Another big part of video is sound. Right. And if you're making an ad with sound, you have to be in the right environment in order to hear it, or else you're only getting really half of the ad. Now, I know we have videos, static images, videos without sound, but sound is a huge option when it comes to videos and ad videos.
That is a very good point. That's a very, very good point. Okay, so let's move to the next question. We have 8 minutes left, so we'll try to get through as many of these as possible. This is an open question, not directed at any one particular panelist. How do you see place-based advertising evolving within the next year? And the subsequent follow-up question is, do you see digital dominating the industry entirely? I might throw to Adam first, because it seems to be more up your alley in the media owner space.
Yeah, no problem. We did touch on this earlier, and I agree that digital will be the dominant force, but let's not take static completely out of the way. Static is extremely impactful. If you look at some of the, I'm going to go outside of place-based here, but if we're looking at some of the extensions that you see on the Gardner board with static, we've done a couple of massive murals within our campus hallways. Those are massively impactful. They're not changing every 15 to 30 seconds. They're there all the time. And there is still a lot of weight that comes behind impactful static images. It's just the way it goes. If you look at bathroom takeovers, if you look at huge lobby dominations within cinemas or transit areas, these are very impactful. It's not something that's going to disappear, and I don't think that it should. But will digital dominate? Absolutely. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. All right, so this question reaches me right in the heart because I love innovation. Tariq I'm just reading it now. Tariq touched upon innovation in place-based over the past few years. Can you provide examples of innovation or interactions over the past few years? Tariq, I'll toss that to you unless Sarah and Adam also want to join it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have execution, like we have already had past executions that were done before COVID, and COVID, as I mentioned, like kind of put a halt to it. And I think the future does hold a lot of AI and VR going together. And I think play space is the most opportune environment for that to start with. So in past examples, there were certain brands. We have, I think Pattison works with, one of our partners, Pattison works with that. We have window front screens that give us the capability of sensories as well as interactive capabilities. I do not remember the brands out of this point, but I do remember the capabilities. So those are hard for me to explain right away, unless because they're very visual. But I do see tons of applications of that, and going into the future, that looks extremely promising. And sky is the limit, to be honest. Once those capabilities do come in, we can do so much more with out of home.
I think the interactive component and that ability to be able to engage and really connect, on a sensory level, like a multi-sensory level with place-based is it's the prime medium to be able to have that multi-sensory experience. There's
I'm sorry, can I just jump in with an interactive example since you're so passionate about that?
Please.
One example that comes to mind is using digital out of home and place-based opportunities as well in conjunction with each other to really further brand awareness of a new product for a client in New York called Shake Shack. So I'm sure we're all familiar with their cheese fries. They were introducing some white truffle menu products, so different fries and burgers and things like that. And they organized a scavenger hunt. So Talon helped them to do this mostly programmatically, to go around the city. And if people were scanning QR codes and collecting QR codes, the more they scanned, the more their chances to win a free product were. So it was really, really interactive. We had tons of scans, lots of free merchandise given away. And many, many happy, satisfied customers who had so much fun looking for the ads within the city. So, imagine, we all want people to see our ads. Imagine going out looking for ads and really trying to changing the conversation and making it so interactive and fun. And I think there's so much more of that lies ahead now.
So that actually sort of inherently and organically answered a question. And I'll repeat the question, but I think this question was answered, and then we can move on to one of the next questions that Jason's got on T. But I'll read this prior question was, hi, thanks everyone. Can anyone speak to a specific example of a place-based success story from a small local business perspective? Shake Shack, it may be a little more a larger component, but still very local based. It has a pretty large local audience. So I think we've hit that. Jason, what was the next question that's on T here?
Certainly, by the way, in New York, where I am, Shake Shack is definitely considered local, or it was when the line was around the block at the park. So the question was that had come in, Adam, directed to you, Adam. Adam, how do you measure impact? Impact being in quotes, I will tell you. How do you measure impact to justify a higher pricing medium?
So in terms of an actual measurable KPI, as I spoke to before, we're looking at something that Lumen as well as Dentsu Norway has produced called an attentive CPM, and it's more looking at the amount of seconds that an eyeball actually sees out of a 15-second ad. So this is something that we're looking into and trying to bring it and quantify it. I don't think we're there yet, but it will be happening soon. But in terms of actual impact, I mean, I'll take cinema, for example. When you're sitting in front of a cinema screen, you can't not see that screen. You're not looking at your phone because, you're pretty much shunned to, you're not allowed to. And you have all of your 2.5 minutes of that showtime loop looking at that screen. Like, to me, that is more impactful and therefore a little bit more valuable than looking at a normal ad on a billboard, whether it be a TSA, whether it be in passing, whether it be in a different environment where there's lots of clutter, or there's different ads coming at you as well. So it's kind of in that view of place-based media where we're talking about that one-on-one interaction instead of that one-to-many. So that's kind of where we justify the CPM being a little bit more higher than out-of-home awareness brands on the whole. But as Tariq and Sarah have mentioned as well, I mean, talk to your partners, talk to your place-based partners. There's always up for negotiation. We want to make a great campaign from our brand partners. We want to make sure that everyone's happy with their investment and where there goes. And let's do some brand lift studies afterwards. Let's put some afterthought into research where we can show you that impact actually warranted a little bit higher of a CPM.
So we have less than 1 minute, and I'm going to throw this out for the quickest answer. This is going to be a rapid fire answer. One like very simple sentiment question. It's the last question in the Q&A. And the question is, speaking of audio, because we've spoken about audio and its importance, how do you feel about audio out of home?
Sensory is the word, I'd say. Anything that adds to the senses is, and as a part of out of home, is very welcomed and is absolutely going to add up to the impact. I can't wait for the time when we have more senses being tackled, like touched by out of home, and audio definitely is the segue into that eventually. So bright future there, would love it.
Anybody else? Quick, because we got to go.
I think Tariq nailed it, in my opinion. Absolutely.
Sarah?
No, we feel great about audio out of home. We'd love to see more of it. I feel like it's really applicable to certain categories and brands, more so than mass at this point, but we'll see how it continues to evolve.
I love it. Thank you everyone so much. This has been such an incredible panel. We are right on time. It's 4 o'clock. You spent an hour with us. It's been insightful, educational, and informative. So appreciate your time. Thank you to our panelists, Sarah, Tariq, Adam, my co-host, Jason. Such a pleasure having you again. Thank you.
Always.
And if anybody has any follow-up questions you want to drop either in the chat, if this is being recorded, so we'll catch all of the Q&As coming afterwards, or just shoot us an email. And appreciate you. Have a fabulous Wednesday afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Much.
Have a good one.
Bye.